It's time for today's episode of the UGA Sports Live Podcast, recorded in front of a slightly tipsy studio audience at world-famous Champy's Fried Chicken. We will have the latest on Georgia Bulldogs football, basketball, and recruiting. Watch live and send us your questions on the 11 Alive Sports page on Facebook. Be advised this podcast is off the record and not safe for work. Also, be sure to subscribe to the UGA Sports Live Podcast on iTunes and Google Play.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to this week's edition of the UGA Sports Live Podcast with Jim Donnan, former Georgia head coach. My name is Rodney Nabulsi, and I'm joined by Jake Roos, our traveling superstar on the recruiting circuit, the guy who's been two back-to-back trips to the great state of Florida.
Please give me a weekend off.
You got to go to New Orleans this week, so there are no.
Going to New Orleans this weekend?
We'll see about that. Roddy may pull that one out from under me. He wanted me to experience the joys of Lakeland.
Yes.
While he gets to go to New Orleans. So
there's better food.
Seems fair. Yeah.
Hey, we flew you down there at least instead of making you drive like last time.
No, that's true.
We have done that in the past. Anyway, we will have a lot of recruiting updates for you from Jake's time in Lakeland, Florida. A lot of going on the recruiting front. And, of course, spring practice, right? Georgia is in spring break this week. They start spring practice next Tuesday. They have pro day next Wednesday. Then they'll be back to practicing on Thursday, I imagine. 3 practices a week for a few weeks, and then we'll have G-Day, so a lot to cover there. We have a lot to preview. Before we get started, I want to give a big shout-out to Athens Ford for being a sponsor of our show, and, of course, Aaron Overhead Doors. I always save Aaron for last. We should put them up front because they are one of our best sponsors, and Ryan Lassee is a good guy. Of course, Your Pie, today is March 12th.
Oh, it's
in
coming.
2 days. 2 days. This coming Thursday will be March 14th, 314. That is Pie Day. Swing out by any of the Your Pie locations. There are over 60 of them. There are 50 more in the works. So I told you folks, get in on the ground floor of Your Pie if you get a chance. But if you go by any Your Pie on this coming Thursday, March 14th, 314, Pie Day, you will be able to get one of their pizzas that are normally $7.99 for $3.14. That's over half off. Okay, this isn't rocket science. If you haven't had one, go try it. I apologize in advance for the addiction that you will acquire when you have your first one, but it's a good addiction to have. So when you get a chance, this coming Thursday, I would not go at like noon. I would not go at like 6 o'clock. I would try to get an off-hour time because the places are going to be packed. So now what I don't know is the you can call ahead and order your pizza. That's a new thing.
Yeah, I wonder if you can.
I don't know if that's going to be in effect.
That's worth a shot, though,
I
given
would do
the lines. Yeah.
I would do it. So if you get a chance, and like I said, if you get a chance, swing by this Thursday. If you've never had Your Pie, this is your chance. Get a great pizza. Of course, we want to give a big shout-out to Academia Brewing Company. Great food out there. They will have also be a great place to watch this Wednesday's SEC Championship game. Of course, you can watch it here at Champies too. Not Championship, SEC Tournament game with Georgia and Missouri.
You were a little delirious on that statement.
Well, hopeful, Coach. Hopeful. And, of course, big shout-out to Cable East and 365 Game Day. And, of course, we are on the 11 Alive web page, the Facebook page. Give them a like and share this with your friends. That's not too much to ask for them letting us come on and destroy their journalistic credibility. So get a chance, give them the little thumbs up there for their page, not just this particular segment. We know you like this segment. We appreciate that. But give them a like on their page and follow all of their great reporting. They do a great job of aggregating a lot of the stories nationwide, so it's a good one-stop shop for your international stories of, people being classified as athletes to get into school.
Oh, boy. Oh, boy.
That's I'm sure 11 Live will have that, too. Let's jump right into I want to get your report from Lakeland, Florida. There's a lot going on down there. I know you spoke to an Oregon commit that Georgia's going after. You spoke to one of the best running backs in the nation.
Yeah, definitely.
Some other guys down there. Can you catch us up on what, if people go to UGASports.com, that's a plug.
Yeah.
That's what we call it in the industry. We call it a plug. If you go to UGASports.com, you'll be able to read stories on these guys. Give us a kind of quick breakdown.
Yeah, it was a big weekend in terms of the guys out there. A lot of great talent on the field in Lakeland. And the thing that has been one of the key things that we've noticed throughout, I think, this whole year so far is almost every stop of this Rivals Camp Series Georgia's one of the teams that's being consistently mentioned. L.A.,
Houston,
that
was a big one.
Houston
was big.
They got mentioned in this
Miami,
one. Miami as well. So, I mean, Georgia, the buzz is everywhere, no doubt about it. But, as you mentioned, got to talk to some of the top players in the nation. DeMarcus Bowman, we got a story coming with him tomorrow. 5-star running back, one of the best in the nation. A kid who has had Georgia really high on his list. I think they're a little bit down right now, but I think that may just be priority sake of the realistic outlook for the running back room in this 20 class is insane. I mean, there's tons of options, more options than there are spots, really.
And there wasn't that good last year.
No.
I mean, it's kind of like Trey Sanders or bust is kind of the way it felt. And that's not to say that Kenny McIntosh was not a great get. It's just that I remember last year we were kind of focused on one
tiers.
Guy. Yeah, exactly.
There are tiers, but this year the high level tier
is full.
filled. It's as good of the running back class as I can remember in my 5 years doing this. So. DeMarcus Bowman, make sure to be watching
he said
for
some
that
good things about Georgia.
He definitely did. It sounds like he's kind of coming back around on Georgia. Florida and Clemson are the other two to watch there for sure. A lot of people think Clemson's the team to beat right now for him after Florida has been all in on the guy for so long.
Wouldn't that be horrible for Florida? I know a lot of people would shed a tear.
Speaking of Florida, we spoke to Gervin Dexter as well. Their defensive line commit. We got that story up over at UGASports.com today. Georgia not giving up on that one, and for good reason. You saw the video I tweeted out. That kid he embarrasses the center. This kid tries to block him, and it's basically
not a fair drill.
He just
not just the way he does it.
I
agree.
agree.
That's so non-football.
I agree.
You're rushing the passer.
You know what the play is.
I think once in a while you should just let the guy jump. The center just snap it before they make the sound and bite the guy in the ankle.
Well, no, that a lot of times they will do that. They have a snap count that they can't hear. They got to watch the ball move. So the line of center,
but they know they're not going to run the ball. They just
that's the thing. That's what I'm saying. So you can take away the advantage of them both hearing when the ball is going to be snapped. They go.
For me though, what comes across in that drill is how strong a kid is, because with Gervin, I mean these kids
But they're not allowed to bull rush though.
That's true.
So you got to show some other moves.
You got to you got to engage your man and.
So we both know what's coming. It's man versus man. Let's see what happens. And, of course, they're not in pads, but at least I'll put it this way. What the guys we have seen show out in those drills have shown out in college.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, sure.
If you can't do it there, you're not going to be able to do it in college.
And so Gervin, though.
Rivals 250 defensive end.
Soon to visit Georgia, 6'6", 270 plus, doesn't move like that, doesn't carry bad weight. This is a kid who it's understandable why Kirby likes this kid and his frame, because he's going to be a force in the SEC for years to come.
And you also mentioned I mentioned the kid that's committed to Oregon.
Yeah, Vontae Williams.
And we had a story about him yesterday. What I thought was interesting, Coach, was the fact that all these guys Jake's talking, not all of them, but a lot of them kept talking about how Kirby Smart is talking to them. And they've come out and said, hey, I like that I'm not being talked to by a position coach or a recruiting coordinator. I'm getting to hear from the head coach. It makes me feel like a priority. That I just can't imagine how much work that puts on Kirby Smart's desk.
He uses his time wisely. I mean, obviously you got so much time in a day, and you don't have an open deal with these guys. They've got to contact you. You can't be calling them.
No, he doesn't.
Sure.
I'm just saying the rules are if you're a great player over there and wherever you live, the kid has to call you, or you can text them and all that. So sometimes you get a little bit of a bad read on this, saying they talk to him. Maybe they're texting them more than they are talking to him, but he does a great job of that. And I think the one thing that I want to mention today that is so salient to me as a Georgia fan is free agency in college, in the pro sports world today. You got two players that just went from one team to another that got big money in pro football on their second contracts, that both of them Kirby Smart recruited to Alabama, Landon Collins and C.J. Mosley. And you look at their imprint, winning the national championship at Alabama, playing on winning teams, but the way they were coached, the way they were developed, help them be ready to make a tremendous imprint their first year. And, the way the rules are now, you don't get that big a contract, the first one, because everything – I mean, it's big, but comparatively speaking, but that second contract's where you got to make your hay. That's what Roquan's going to have to do in 3 years.
Absolutely.
All these guys. But I just think that gets back to the Oregon point that – and you made a great point. Hey, Kirby Smart's talking – he has got – next to Nick, I think he's got the name in college sports right now as far as defensive priorities that people are looking at. Obviously Clemson has made a big move with their overall program and all that, and Dabo's got the name and the star power too. But whether it's just the one name, Kirby, or if you say Kirby or Nick or Dabo, I mean, that gets their attention. And things like that, like I don't know how many we just got Baker won the Thorpe Award, and Roquan won the Butkus last year. I don't know how many of those actually, maybe Dave McMahon could look up that for us, how many Kirby has had that actually won the Butkus or the Thorpe Award. But that's no brag. That's fact. And you look at where you want to go and where you want to be developed. I mean, that really got my attention today to see those two guys get that kind of money.
Yeah, what got my attention was that deal Trent Brown got yesterday.
Well, Trent Brown wasn't even starter for Florida. For the 49ers, but he goes to go back to show you what the way that Coach Belichick looks at people, and he's looking at him and Flowers. They would have had to take a lot of their cap space to keep those two, but they get the draft choices. They got Isaiah Wynn moving up, probably going to take over that left tackle, and they'll get another defensive lineman and 2 more draft picks for plus a compensatory pick for Flowers. So, they don't worry about the midline guys that much as they just go after. I mean, they keep the high-profile guys, get them paid. But I tell you, they don't worry about the.
No, not at all.
And they're thinking into the future. And that, we talk about that that's my last statement here. But one of the things you always got to do in building your roster is plan for the future, because now it's going to be even more important because we're starting to lose guys early. We're going to lose them early next year. We're going to lose – for sure, Thomas, and who else? Probably
Wilson.
Swift, Wilson. Fromm will be up there that people are talking to. I think he'd benefit staying another year. But it's just a situation. You created a monster as far as the recruiting now, but it really helps us, and that's what's great about you going out and talking to these guys one-on-one. Kirby's got that name value. He's got that star power.
And we're seeing that. The kids are saying it means a lot that Kirby Smart is recruiting me himself. And that's not to say that they're not saying great things about Charlton Warren or, Cortez Hankton or Del McGee. They're also saying, I'm also getting texts from Kirby Smart. I call him, because that's what they do now. They text the kid, hey, give me a call when you get a free minute. They call him, they talk to him, and Kirby's spending part of his day talking to these kids he wants. And when he's doing it to a kid that's committed to Florida, it's not just a courtesy offer.
Yeah.
They're not, hey, we're just staying in touch. He's going after this kid.
So, absolutely.
I did want to bring up one of the reasons I brought up Trent Brown. Nothing against the kid. I covered him when he was at GMC. I remember going down there and shaking his hand and feeling that hand just wrap around mine. And he'd had some trouble down in Albany earlier. I think it was Albany where he was at. Anyway, this was during the previous regime, and he wanted to come to Georgia. He really did. He told me, he said, I don't think they'll let me in. I don't think I can get in at Georgia. Because he'd had some discipline issues, and there was issues with the team at that time about, the perception was that, there were too many kids getting in trouble. They weren't going to bring him in. And, it looked like my point is you never know how it's going to go. He goes to Florida, doesn't start his first year, gets in as a guard, then starts his senior year. Nothing, drafted in 6th, 7th round. Not really tearing it up. Then all of a sudden, now he's the highest paid guy. You never know how some of these kids are going to pan out.
Absolutely.
But
he took advantage of his situation too.
Absolutely,
I mean, he got a lot of good tape protecting Tommy's backside up there, and he had a side deal with Giselle to make sure that he really took care of. She said, "I'm gonna feed you some money too. Don't let my boy get hit." But hey, seriously, he did a good job. I mean, you watch his technique,
I was proud of him.
And where it's going to help the Raiders, if they play all those really good teams in their division, got those tremendous pass rushers like Von Miller, and you got the guy coming off the edge for the Chargers, that played for South Carolina. The kid that faked the punt.
Melvin Ingram,
yeah. All those guys. So every team's got to have a great left tackle, but in certain divisions, maybe throw the ball a little more, and then you got Kansas City's in their division too, right?
Yeah.
So
one thing is, if that guy comes up again, though, you have that same situation. Kirby's bringing him in. Kirby's not going to be like, well, okay, you got in trouble in high school 3 years ago. I'm not worried about that right now. Can you play ball?
We're a program of second chances.
Yeah, but at the same time, though, if he gets here, you've seen this.
Oh, absolutely.
They hold these kids to a high standard. We see guys getting in trouble. And one of the things I'm thankful for is we saw a Georgia player get arrested recently for getting into a bar fight, and it was over and done with. You didn't see the narrative. Kirby Smart's losing control. He's like, look, kid got in trouble for something I've done. I'm not gonna,
all right.
It has happened. We're going to handle internally. I'd hate to be in that cat's shoes come 5 a.m. on some of these runs. Being handled internally doesn't mean he's getting off the hook. It means it's brutal. We saw the interview we had with DeAndre Baker talking about when he dropped the ball at South Carolina. He said, he was punished for that on the 1 yard line, running it back in. You imagine what an ugly arrest gets you. So
absolutely.
Point being, there are second chances with Kirby, but if you do something too egregious, he's booted kids off the team.
Sure.
We saw a couple guys that we thought were going to be on the team this year. They're no longer here.
Yep.
It happens. So I think that is also playing into Kirby's recruiting pitch. Come here. I'm not to say that you're going to get second chances, but I'm going to be fair with you.
Yeah.
I think my bigger point is Trent Brown was basically told he couldn't come for something, happened years ago. Georgia missed out on him because they couldn't get him, wouldn't have got past the Board of Admissions or wherever. Kirby says, look, I'm going to be fair with you. Also, I'm telling you right up front, this is what our depth chart looks like. Mm-hmm. This is what I think you can do. I don't think you're as good as this guy. But I think you're better than these guys.
Well, and that goes back to the story last week that Patrick Garvin did off of the quarterback trainer of Carson Beck.
Yeah.
Basically, he broke down and said, that Kirby's message to the kid was, look, we want you here. We like what you got to offer, but you're going to be behind Jake Fromm. And we're hoping that he stays another year. So, he says if he stays, you're going to be behind him. And the kid was cool with it. But, it's that idea of, like you said, keeping the roster stocked, keeping the next man up mentality and having those guys available because, you are going to lose some guys. I think that this is a very key year for the tackle positions for that reason. You got a potential to lose both your left and right after this season. So it's going to be very interesting. And I will say, I hope people appreciate and really pay attention to the season that Andrew Thomas has this year from spring practice on, because that kid's just been a warrior for this team. Has been an absolute star since he stepped onto campus. And
we're going to have as competitive a situation in the offensive line here for those 5 spots that I can ever remember for any one position since I've been here since '95, because you got so many guys that are really SEC type, all SEC type players that might not even be starting. You know? And you don't want to give them too much credit, but who are you going to play at guard? Are you going to keep Hill at center? Are you going to move Salyer in there as a backup center? Is he going to play guard? What are you going to? The biggest thing for me is what are we going to do about tackles? Behind the two. Hopefully that'll come along. And also we don't give enough love to Kenley for being able to withstand everything. He keeps hanging in there, man.
Everyone keeps saying he's going to be who's going to take his spot. I'm like, you've been saying that for 2 solid years.
But you got to give the guy credit. He just plays like he's supposed to, and you got all these higher rated guys. But I'm telling you now, going into spring, he's going to be one of the starters at guard, and then what are we going to do? We're going to have Mays or Cleveland, and then you got Hill probably at center, and then those 2 tackles. But I'm telling you, it's going to be a competitive situation. It's going to help the defense too, because the number 1 defense is going to play against a really good number 2 offensive line.
No doubt.
And we do some one-on-one, that's for sure. But, I think it just helps you evaluate your players a lot better when you got that kind of competition going against you.
Yeah, and that number 2 defense going up against that number 1 line is like you really want to know what you'll be facing when you go up against the Alabamas of the world. This is what it's going to be like. So
our personnel on defense is like we said is marked improvement there. And shout out to Dean for winning that award on Saturday too.
Yeah.
Tell us what that was. So
I'll have to hold on. Let me look that one up.
He looked good in his tux with that red bow tie too, didn't you think? Did you see the pic?
I did see the pic.
A little National Player of the Year award there.
Right.
So that's nice.
And the academic profile on that too is his parents. He just got such a big academic background. That's
the Watkins Award, the top African-American scholar athlete in high school.
Tremendous honor.
No question about it. And a kid, very deserving. What is it, like a 4? He's got like a 4.0
GPA.
Oh, no, it's higher than 4 because you can go better than 4 now.
That's right.
So he's like 4.6 or something like that,
And he's really made an imprint coming in here early like he did, and he's out there. And there's no question he'll pick up the defense quickly. So that'll be a good battle, too, at inside backer with, Crowder and Rice and now him in there. And, I think, not to mention Tyndall and Walker. I mean, come on.
So you got to think about that offensive line group, how competitive that's going to be. Inside linebacker also competitive. But what about the outside linebacker group, which is also going to be incredibly competitive? So, of those, which is your most competitive group? That's the question.
Well, you got the most 5-stars there at that one position, with Cox and just going right down the list. Anderson and not to mention Walker Grant, who's
Nolan Smith.
Is not a
Jermaine Johnson.
Hey, let me save some of my stuff here, man. Hey, what is this, Jeopardy?
If you don't name them right away, we're going to jump in.
Hey, how about that Jeopardy? Was that great when they're playing for $1 million? Did you watch that?
I did.
Yeah,
not.
And shout out to Alex Trebek.
Yeah, I hate that for him to be.
Hate to hear he's sick.
I've been watching
now.
that since I don't even know how long. I mean, 85 or something like that. But boy, I tell you, that was some pressure-packed questions on that. And anyhow, let's go back to this though. I think those defensive ends really. Are going to be a little bit interchangeable, but one of them's more of an anchor type guy, and the other guy's on the other side, and he can drop off a little bit. But I think we're going to have a lot of mix and match fronts, because we're going to see we're base out of a 3-4, but we can get to a 4-2 pretty quickly, and by subbing to the nickel or dime package, you can really get all those guys more reps, and hopefully Jordan Davis is going to be ready to go. We got, I think, in a little prelude for our site here, we got Anthony Dasher's going to be doing a story about the injured players on our team and what their status is on how they're going to be coming back. He did a lot of good research on that. I saw what you showed me, Roddy, and he's pretty much head on it. And, some of these guys are going to be coming off injuries and won't be able to play because of surgery. But I think the main thing is our depth is good enough with the transition of the 14 enrollees compared to what it was being. If we'd have lost those 4 guys to the pros, the several transfers, and all of a sudden you got 2 or 3 enrollees, our depth.
And 6 or 7 guys injured, all of a sudden you're hurting.
It's hard to practice because you don't want Jake Fromm being the scout team quarterback so the defense can go. So now all of a sudden we got 2 really good quarterbacks out there, and we've got the same thing with the secondary. All of a sudden you had a JUCO corner in Daniels. You had you got Tariq Stevenson coming in to play and challenge those guys. So, and we only basically got 12 practices. You got 2 in shorts or maybe 3, and then you got the one spring game, where everybody plays about 30 plays. So you really don't have a lot of time to really evaluate these guys man oh man because you can't do but so much hitting, which I like. I think if you look at Ron Corson, our trainer, has done some significant background on concussions, and so many concussions in the past before they regulated spring practice happened in the spring because teams weren't worrying about a game. They scrimmaged more. They had a lot more contact, and because of that, more concussions happen there, and as far as practice time, not necessarily game time, but I think you can evaluate so much about what a kid can do doing what our coaches call THUD, THUD, where everything's full speed, but you don't put them on the ground as far as tackling, and you don't block below the waist or do anything. So you just trying to simulate as much as you can a football play and then finish and go to the whistle, and that's the other thing. We got an inordinate amount of officials out there, which Kirby has, which I like, where you make those guys, if you do something wrong as far as breaking the rules, holding the guy or blocking in the back or lining up off sides, right away that an official's telling you that. So you're not getting in bad habits out there too.
That's good. I'm going to ask you, first I'm going to talk a little bit about Athens Forward, but when I come back, I want to ask you about what is the number one goal in spring, aside from not getting anybody hurt. So hang on to that. But you're talking about all the competition at the offensive line spot, inside linebackers, outside linebackers. There is no competition when it comes to Athens Forward. They are killing everybody because I just looked at the list they gave me here. If you want one of those Lariats or King Ranch Crew Cab diesels, the 2019 Super Duties, these are the brand new ones, 2019 Super Duties. They are now $9,000 off. So anybody wants a big one, almost $10,000 off. And then we mentioned the last 2 weeks, if you want that 2018, go last year's, the Ford F-150. Remember, the number one selling truck in America, 2018 Ford F-150, the one I looked at, the 302A Crew Cab, which I could stick pretty much the entire UGASports staff in that thing and drive wherever we want to go. It is huge.
Don't think he won't try.
Yeah. Well, you'd ride in the bed. They have a special price on that. And you have two options. You can get it for $15,000 off, the 2018, or 72 months, 0% financing for qualified buyers. 72 months, 0% financing. So you think about it, when you start financing that thing, at the discount they already have it because it's $7,500 off from Athens Ford. Manufacturer rebate is $6,500 off. Trade assistance $1,000. You can get it for $15,000 off or the 0%. Either way, you're getting this thing for a song. Nobody can compete with that. Like I said, they're just killing the competition. And then nobody can compete with their customer service. It's unreal what they do out there. Had a guy say he was having an issue with a tire. He went out there. They took care of it immediately. He said that he texted his wife, "Hey, I'll be home in a couple hours." He was home in like 30 minutes, and he's like, "I wasn't ready for that."
You had a good way to say you could have gone over there Champions for an hour and a half for academia and gotten some beers.
So, yeah, so the service up there is phenomenal.
Nice haircut, man.
And, of course, we mentioned that the 2018 Ford Focus, the 2018 Ford EcoSport, which is a snazzy little ride, you can get those for under $18,000. You can get the Ford Focus for $13,215 or the EcoSport for $17,495. Or, if you don't want to do that, you can get them both for 0% financing for 60 months. So 5 years, 0% financing. In other words, it's not going to cost you all these interest payments to get it. So, but you got to be qualified. You can't have credit like mine. You got to have credit like Jake's.
Yeah, right.
Have good Jake credit, not Roddy credit. Anyway, Coach, give me what you got.
No, I wanted to give a quick shout out. Just came across here that Thomas Davis signed his new deal with the LA Chargers today.
What?
So congrats to Thomas Davis. Year 15 for him.
One of the greatest
Bulldogs
Bulldogs
of all time. That really makes
time.
me feel old. I remember when we went down to see Thomas when he's a junior. Me and Doug Marone, man, a lot of water over the bridge since then. And Doug Marone's getting ready to sign him a good quarterback there in Foles. I'm glad to see that.
Yeah,
maybe that'll help
absolutely.
him a little bit. But I also want to give just a remembrance here to a guy that was really big, his family to me and to all Georgia family coaches. Gene Sutherland passed away this weekend. They had some fitting tributes to him yesterday, a real memorial over there at Woodward Academy. The guy was just such a loyal dog, unbelievable. And his son, Gene Jr., is going to take over the business. And his grandson is going to be a grad transfer to Georgia as a preferred walk-on as a quarterback and help work with the scout team and things like that. A lifelong dream for him to come play
do we
for.
know that?
No, that's why he's listening. but let's don't forget the tributes.
You're right.
Tributes to him. But his grandson's coming here, and Kirby knows the kid played some at over there at Sanford, but he had that great quarterback Hodges over there. But he's a good quarterback. He'll help our scout team. You know, we lost the one kid that went to TCU,
right.
and but I just want to say that to the Sutherland family, I tell you, anytime I ever needed anything in Atlanta that they could help me with, just tremendous family, and I know that they'll carry on the tradition. And, you know, it has a lot of Gene Jr. has some sisters too, but really
good
our
people.
condolences to them.
Rest in
and
peace.
one of the first things I ever asked, I said, "Can you help me get a job for Heinz Ward's mother?" And right out of the box, you know, right off, got her a good job, and she worked over there till Heinz got his pro contract, and she did a good job for him.
Very nice.
Yeah, now we know there's also a quarterback involved.
Yeah, there you go.
So that's why you listen to the show. I didn't know that. You didn't know that. But, Coach, let's go back to that question. What is the number one goal for Kirby Smart, for you, for all these coaches going into spring practice?
Well, I think the number one goal for any team is to evaluate personnel, not so much to prepare yourself for the teams you're going to play. You got so much time
See,
now.
I would have thought the other way around.
Well, you got so much time now that you didn't used to. The times I'm talking about, you got your whole freshman class can now come in the summer and get indoctrinated, and over half of them have come in the spring semester. So you don't have to really you got so much more time to work with your entire team then and get ready for your first opponent. So I think, and we're going to have a conference opponent for our first game, which, you know, very rarely that I can remember we've had that happen. And Vanderbilt's going to be more difficult to prepare for because they've had a lot of changes in their coaching staff. You don't know if what they're going to do on offense, losing some coaches like that, and they're bringing in a grad transfer quarterback too, so I don't know what they'll do with him. But getting back to our situation, I always felt like you want to evaluate your personnel. How much better have the kids that didn't get to play, or have they matured? Are they ready to go now better than they were when they weren't able to make a move because you had an upperclassman ahead of them? Then the guys that were playing, were they playing because they didn't have anybody else, or can they continue to develop like that? And also maybe do a little experimenting. You know what won for you, and you know what got you beat. So we're going to have to do a better job when the other team, when we're just not kicking people's butt in the tight games. We're going to be able to make some plays on both sides of the ball, get off the field on defense, and keep the ball going on offense. So I would say we're going to work a lot on third and medium, third and long on offense. On defense, our red zone running defense, which, you know, was not that great because of our inside backers. But that's kind of a buffet of everything. But the number one thing is evaluate your personnel and see what they can do and how you're going to get better with them.
I wanted to touch on that because I was hoping you could maybe expand. How important is that for these early enrollees? I mean, for these young guys that just came in, to be able to put them in a live fire situation and have them go up against these guys?
Huge, because sometimes guys don't, and I always used to talk to our coaches about, is this guy playing because he knows the plays and the other guy because he doesn't?
Yeah, that's a good
and
one.
The other guy is much better athlete, you know. So you got to conform your system to what the guy can do in a way, but at the same time, we don't really change our system a lot defensively, and these guys have to learn it. But I think the fact that you're here is going to, and proof in the pudding. Look at how many of these guys have played early, like they did last year that came in early. You know, you look at all those guys that got here and were able to make it. Can you imagine what our team would have been like without those early enrollees from last spring?
Oh, certainly.
And so I think, to answer your question really succinctly, get them out there and see what they can do in live situations and keep it simple, where they're not making mental errors, you know, where their athleticism can take over. And that's the real key is your job as a coach. You can't teach them all you know. I mean, there's no way you can do that because you've been doing it your whole life. These guys have been running that system forever, you know.
Right.
All these coaches have. But, you know, these kids, it's kind of foreign to them. But the tapes don't lie. You get out there, you evaluate them one-on-one, and you build your practice around team. By that I mean you build the segments up into where the first thing you do is you do one-on-one passing without anybody covering them and nobody rushing. See how they can run the routes, catch the ball. Then the next thing you do is, I'll just take that one position, then you throw against a one-on-one with a defensive back covering. Then you throw 7-on-7 with the perimeter defense and the secondary playing against the 7 offensive guys. And then you go to full team. So you build it up like that, so you segment it where you can learn that system. The other thing you do is you got the benefit with all these analysts, all this tape and stuff, and we got the cut-ups where you can look at the last year's play, what went right with it, what went wrong with it when you install it. And so they learn how to do that.
See, to me, I would have thought, and this is why I love having you on the show, my thought would have been the purpose of spring is to work on your fundamentals, your installs, get ready so that when you're not trying to teach this stuff in the fall, when it comes around. But it makes a lot more sense to say, who do you put on the field come fall? So, what do you do?
I'm going to give you credit. I'm going to give you credit for being smarter than you're getting yourself to. 15 years ago, when the only thing you did was have 15 practices, and you couldn't get the kids in the off season for 8 hours a week, and you couldn't get them here in the summer, and to work with them individually as a coach can do, then you had to make sure they learned it then, because that was the only time you had with them. But now these guys, if you just put this little timetable, they finished finished the bowl game, then they came back and started doing working with Coach Sinclair, working on the program. But as soon as the signing date, they've had meetings every week and started on their spring install. They'll have all that in before the spring even starts. Then they'll reinstall it every day as they go through it. Then after spring, they'll go through the same thing and start again learning it. And then they'll go and do it in the summer. And then before they come back, they would have had 4 installs, and then they'll start again in the fall camp. So that'll be the 5th time they had it as compared to one time back when we were talking about it.
So I wasn't off that far off base, but it's good to know, because to me, it makes a lot more sense in the spring to. Okay, and when we talk about position battles in the spring, I've had people kind of roll their eyes. Well, the position battles don't matter now. It's a long time till fall camp. No, the position battles matter now, because the first day of fall camp, when you're lining up your
position battles matter every week.
I know, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, I agree.
But people kind of roll their eyes when we talk about, hey, this is important for you, because our job in journalism is to figure out what's important, and that's why I like bouncing stuff off of you, because I don't want to be talking 45 minutes about installs when they're like, Roddy, the installs, we're going to take care of that later. Right now, we want to find out who are the 5 guys we line up on that defensive front, when it comes to who's our first day.
Who's our first nickel, who's our first dime, who's our first money guy on the rush, who's our first backer out. But the other thing that really is critical here to me with the 70-man dress-out squad for our first game is these guys want to make the plane. They want to be on the bus. And so there's a really vivid amount of training for special teams to see if you can fill in there and help. So maybe I'm the 3rd running back, or I'm the 4th receiver, or the 5th receiver. Hey, Jason Stanley had a big role for us covering kicks, doing stuff like that. So these kids see a chance to make the team. And maybe they know they can see all these guys ahead of them. But if I bust my butt with all these drills and stuff we do in spring practice, I got a shot at making that when fall camp starts. I'm going to be in the first 2 deep on the special teams.
Well, the special teams are also filled with starters, too, because when I was up in Indianapolis, we were talking to all these starters who also played special teams, So when you're talking to the DeAndre Bakers of the world, these guys are like, yeah, I was on special teams. I was on, you're like, wow, these guys they busted their tail out there. So it's a good point to bring that up. I do want to give a quick shout-out to Aaron Overhead Doors. We're talking a lot about competition. If you follow Ryan Lucia when you get a chance, follow him on Facebook, or click on their Facebook page at Aaron Overhead Doors. You'll see a guy who's just driven to just destroy his competition. I mean, this guy, he he gives no quarter and expects none. He's just absolutely relentless in trying to make Aaron Overhead Doors the best customer service.
And he's done it.
He has. It's been unreal. So if you go to Aaron Overhead Doors, you look at all their service reviews. They're through the roof. They're just lights out. So if you get a chance, swing by AaronOverheadDoors.com. If they come out to your house, they're going to come out for free. They'll give you a free estimate on any work they need to do. And if all of a sudden, you do need some big work done, they have financing. So, again, we were talking about the financing for Athens Ford. They have financing out at Aaron Overhead Doors. It's a great place to swing by, great customer service. And, again, there's just one guy out there who's running that show that just wants to absolutely destroy all his competition. He is not giving.
That. I
mean, he is relentless. I'm like, I wish I had about half as much energy running UGA Sports as this guy does running Aaron Overhead Doors. We put everybody out of business. This guy is just a monster.
Yeah, I think that's something that everybody needs to remember about competition and about everything you do pretty much is once you get outside of athletics, if you're an athlete, you still are competing. You guys are competing for stories, everything like that. But if it didn't bother you when you lost, let's say that he went out to get somebody to get their overhead from him and he lost it to somebody else. If it didn't bother him, how's he going to be driven to do the job he does? Hey, he wants to destroy people as far as competition.
I imagine if he misses one, there's
show me a loser and I'll show you. You show me a good loser and I'll show you a loser.
I guarantee you, if he goes for a big contract and he doesn't get it, there's a hole in a wall somewhere.
No, absolutely.
I'm just telling you, that guy.
If it doesn't bother you, I hate to see go out to some of these little league games. I mean, I think it's great to be be good sports and all, but if it doesn't bother you when you lose, man, it's going to be tough for you when you start competing in the real world.
Now, I got a big question for both of you. We've talked about the offensive line and how big that competition is going to be. These outside linebackers, that's going to be a big one as well. Where is the big question, and where does Georgia have questions to answer going into spring practice this year, in your mind? I mean, what are the spots?
I'd say D-line, just because, it's been the question for the last several years as far as just difference makers. I mean, guys that road graders up there that take on the blocks and keep the linebackers. I think that, although we got some good guys coming back, I think Rochester's going to be a little limited this spring he had a little stuff done to his leg, but I think D-line myself. What about you?
To me, it's tight ends and the wide receivers. I mean, I know what Charlie Warner can do. I think he's a great talent. I don't think he's been utilized as much as he could, and he missed some blocks. Let's call it what it was last year. He had some issues, but he has been a top performer. But Georgia runs those two tight end sets so often. You're going to bring in –
because we had to.
Yeah. I mean, it's going to be that makes me a little nervous there. But then to lose Riley Ridley, Mecole Hardman, Terry Godwin – Isaac Nada,
replacing a lot of production.
Your top three wide receivers gone, and that's not to say that I don't believe JJ will, take over and Tyler Simmons, he can catch everything. Georgia has a lot of guys, but I'm not saying they won't do it, but who's it going to be?
You got some question marks, but I think, I mean, I really
which one is going to step up?
I like Jackson. I think Robertson's going to really not having these guys in front of him getting the reps. He's going to get a lot better getting more reps, and I really like the fact that we'll probably play 3-by-1 more than we will 2-by-2, maybe, because of what you said without Nada. We'll probably be with three wides out there, and I also like them using Cook some.
I was about to say, just throw it to Cook. Throw it to Cook.
So. Maybe because I feel pretty good about Holloman was a guy we went to a lot in the clutch last year, and Jake feels good about him, and he's a big angular guy, and some of these guys are going to get their chance now. They didn't get. It's hard to play more than two deep in any skill level situation, but
and again,
I'm not point. We got some question marks, but it's not like we're exactly.
Yeah, you're not starving for talent.
No, to your point, again, you said, what's the question?
Sure.
My question is, who's it going to be?
Yeah.
Not how. Will the production be there? I expect the production to be there. I don't. I know what Tyler Simmons can do. The guy is one of the fastest speed merchants out there. We know that Holloman makes big catches, And I ran into Demetrius Robertson at the DMV the other day. Shout out to Ollie Nabulsi for getting his learner's permit.
All right.
Yeah.
Way to go, Ollie.
So he got his, and while we were out there, ran into Demetrius, and we talked a little bit off the record. And I'm telling you, folks, he was the number 1 athlete in the nation, right ahead of Miko Hardman. They went back and forth. The guy is ridiculously talented. He had a year of learning. I'm going to put my money.
How's he looking? He in pretty good shape?
He looks all right.
Yeah,
He's in a big hoodie. Everyone's like, did he look bigger? I'm like, he's wearing a big hoodie.
It helped him get in the weight program. He was just asked to do different things, and he had a lot of people in front of him and a lot of expectancy. But I think the thing that will help our passing game, to me, is our running game is going to be really good. Yeah. And whenever you're doing that opens up play action. And I also think our defense is going to be so much better that everybody's going to be playing from behind on us.
I'm surprised that neither of you went with the one that I think is the big question, and that's
we're not as smart as you. That's why.
Well, I think that how do you replace your Thorpe Award winner? Who steps in? Is it Tyson Campbell? Is it Eric Stokes? You've got Lewis Sine, who's in here now competing.
I don't know why, but I'm not worried about that as much. And that's not to say, DeAndre Baker, the best defensive back in the nation. But
well,
I'm just thinking.
My concern there is this. Tyson Campbell played CB2 for most of the year last year, but was overtaken at the end by Eric Stokes. Did that mess with his confidence? Did that change anything? And which one of these guys, now that they've had kind of a year to work next to each other, which one of them is going to step this up? And also, Chuck Ward mentions DJ Daniel. How does he factor into this
That's why
battle?
he brought him in.
He's a super fast guy.
I think our secondary will be so much better than it has been the past 3 years. We'll get more interceptions. We'll get more deflections because we just got better athletes than we had the first year, the second year, this year. I mean, we obviously Baker, we don't have anybody as talented as him, but our competition in the secondary is
I think it's great.
I mean, you're talking about – plus you added Stevenson and Daniel and Senny. I mean, come on. Those 3 guys are – and
Otis Reese is coming on.
Otis Reese,
Sure.
Otis Reese, a tackling machine. I like our secondary.
You get the leadership of J.R. Reed, LeCount in his second major year. But to your point about the cornerbacks themselves, I thought what Eric Stokes did, even against some fantastic competition, he stood well. And the fact that Tyson Campbell could come in and be the cornerback 2 for most of the year as a true freshman.
Yeah.
It's his second year.
I agree.
So
you hear those coaches talk about, boy, we really improved the room. I haven't seen too many rooms play games. I mean, I read that room BS all the time. Boy, I like our room now. Hey, what do you got? Have you got a couch in there? Do you have a pipe?
Our end table can go one-on-one with anybody.
But seriously, our defensive back room has. Seriously, though, if you look at that grouping of the guys that are coming back, and you add Devon Wilson, and you add Webb and Tyreek, and then you add the fact that Chris Smith was able to redshirt but still play.
True.
What about William Poole?
Amir Speed is in there, and long and big.
Oh, yeah, and Amir Speed should be back and ready to go.
Yeah.
He's one of the highest-rated guys to come out of
the
there.
competition's going to be
the
great.
fact that Roddy picked out that Speed was hurt. Went for like 2 weeks. He had a cast on his arm, and nobody noticed but Roddy that he missed, and he got redshirted. But let me tell you something. Our defensive back is going to be against our secondary. Both of those groupings are trying to make their mark, so they're going to be competitive against each other because they know they got somebody else. That's going to be.
We might see a few more concussions in the spring.
No, they won't. They don't do that.
I'm just teasing.
But I like that competition, and I liken it to back, for instance, and I don't talk about my old players much, but when I had Champ covering Hines, that was a pretty good competition in practice.
I imagine it was pretty good.
You know what I'm saying? And that's what helps you there. Yeah. I mean, you got those. Man, that's good. What
were we talking about? Like when I was asking DeAndre Walker, who's the best offensive tackle you went against in your entire career? He's like, Andrew Thomas. Against other teams, he goes, it doesn't matter. It's Andrew Thomas. I mean, he was very adamant that that's the best guy he's faced, which is funny because he's like 2 or 3 years younger than him.
Yeah.
So he and again, we had guys say that all the time. The best players they faced, we're talking to all these guys in the combine in Indianapolis. They were naming guys on their own team. Now, part of that is just good marketing.
Well, it's good, though. I'm glad to hear that.
But a lot of it was just honest, like, hey, the toughest guy I ever, what's the toughest linebacker you ever faced? Roquan Smith.
I believe that.
I believe that all day.
Like, well, I thought I had him beat to the edge, and here he comes, and he's not supposed to be able to catch me, from the edge like that.
Our ace man, talking about people, David McMahon came up with this list of guys that Kirby has recruited and coached. 2009, Rolando McClain won the Buckets. 2013, Mosley. 2017, Roquan. And, after he left, Reuben Foster won it the next year. So that's 4 guys. Then DeAndre Baker, Minka Fitzpatrick won it 2 years in a row after Kirby left. And, it's hard to find out who else. But the idea, it's getting back to that Oregon thing, is that Kirby's got the street cred around the country.
There's no question.
He's the guy that can put him out there. And I remember you're talking about competition and all. We had a guy that played for us at Missouri named Conrad Good. His dad played pro ball, and he was a good-looking kid. He ended up being an actor a lot like Bosworth, big, tall, blonde-headed kid. But he was a good offensive tackle. But we had a guy behind him named John Clay. That his nickname was the Masher. So
I respect anyone named
but
that.
I just got to tell you, the story though. I went from Missouri to Oklahoma, and I was there in the spring, and I was talking to one of our defensive ends that was really a great player. I mean, he ended up and I said, who was the best guy you ever played against in the league and everything? He said, Coach, I'm just got to tell you, when they put that second team tackle in for Missouri, I didn't want to play anymore. And that's just the way he looked. He said, that guy was unbelievable. So how can he not be first team? Well, after that, he played the next 2 years, but he was waiting in line. John Clay, the Masher.
The Masher, man.
Awesome.
But, those are kind of stories that, some guys are just waiting in line,
Absolutely, no question about it. Yeah, you've got to assume that that's the case with this team because of how they've recruited, the depth at these positions.
Exactly.
There are guys on this team that could play for a lot of teams that are honestly just down the depth chart.
Right,
nothing more.
You hear Kirby talk about it though, and he'll say it next Tuesday. Competition is what he wants out there.
Absolutely.
Every day you're competing, and they'll move you down. I mean, they're grading you all the time. They got you on that GPS on effort and running. They know what your speed level is. If you're not
every rep is filmed and graded.
Yeah, and they got 3 people over there keeping up with it during practice. And if it's hard to keep up with all those kids. But if you're not doing exactly like you need to, they go tell the old coach. And when he gets on your butt, boy, you know it.
Well, that's the other thing that all the guys that were in Indianapolis said. Because we'd asked them and said, look, Bill Belichick said that Georgia gets players ready for the NFL. What is your take on that? Why do you think that is? Why did he, single out Georgia? And to a man, I thought they'd have different answers. Scheme, player personnel decisions. Every one of them said it was practice. Because they've all talked to Sony Michel and Isaiah Wynn. What's the NFL like? What are practices like? And they said, we're more dead. We don't have classes to go to, but practices are easier here than they are at UGA. And every kid said, yeah, by the time we got to the games, practices were much harder than the games themselves, And I'm like, and again, I'm not saying that that's only happens at Georgia. That happens everywhere.
Yeah, but that's easier to answer than really because you're only going to play at max if you're a really good player 60 to 65 snaps. Some days in practice, our guys will get 200 reps.
That's my point. They're like, but each one of those reps is graded. If you have a loaf on one of those, you're running. And it's on film, and it's shown in the room the next day when they go through their film stuff. Every rep is graded, who won, who lost, and then they do it as a group. Who won this rep? Who lost this rep? When the wide receivers go against the defensive back. In other words, everything you do is put up on the screen the next day for them to go over. And it's that is just a level of accountability that's, again, I'm not saying Georgia's the only one that does it. I'm just saying, to your point, the competition that we mentioned in spring practice is going to be brutal, just like it is in the fall.
No doubt.
Bad word, brutal.
It is brutal. It's tough. You can't have a down day.
Hey, that's right. Hey, You know, you can't. You know, the guy you say Tiger Woods doesn't shoot a 68 every day. But
CJ Orand with a good question for us here. Get a couple in here before we wrap things up. He wants to know: do you think Ben Cleveland will go right back to starting at right guard? Do you think that coming out of the gate, that's where he ends up? I tend to.
Well,
think
you got
so.
a three-way shot there with Kinley, Mays, and Cleveland. All three have started a lot of games, and I think they're all interchangeable. We'll see what happens there. But
if we're going off weight,
then you got Salyer and coming up. Where is he going to play, center or guard?
Hill.
You got Hill's going to be. I would think based on the way he played against Kentucky that one game, he'll be the starting center to start spring. But Cleveland just had a tough time to get hurt. I mean, he got hurt. And the guys that came in, and whoever it was, when it was their shot, they came in and did well, and our schedule benefited a little bit because we weren't playing quite as strong teams as we did at the end. And I think Mays is just a very athletic guy that got a tremendous future. You know, his movement's a little better than Ben, but Ben's strength is overwhelming. And anytime you hurt your ankle and then you hurt the other ankle, it's tough, you know. And
he looks okay power cleaning 405.
Yeah, he's just a monster there.
Good Lord.
He's good. But I think Cleveland, it's going to be all three of those guys are going to play a lot.
I just want to point out to people, if you don't lift, you know, you don't understand how hard moving 405 in a power clean is.
Do you even lift, bro?
Yeah, exactly. I'm just saying.
Right there, he lifts it.
I lift this. Thank you,
I do these
Academia.
16-ounce curls all day.
But I'm just saying, 405 pounds, I mean, deadlifting it is enough. You know, that'll kill you. But to see a guy like that, you know, bring it up to the shoulders and that one snatch up there, that is
I like it.
Nuts. And that's why you saw Coach Sinclair lose his mind because that and I actually had a former Georgia weightlifting guy. Somebody said, yeah, only like 70% of the country could do that. I'm like, no, that's more like 97 could not do that. And a former weightlifting guy that used to work at Georgia goes, 99% of humans,
There's not
it's
many
impossible.
people who do that.
And there are very few guys in the pros that do that. That is just a ridiculous amount. And here's the thing. We know Ben is strong as a Knox. But like you said, when you got two bad ankles, what are you going to do? But I think he's healthy now. And I think, again, every day when you go to UGASports.com and you see our practice reports, I guarantee you there will be a running commentary each week. Here's how that first line looked. And, again, it doesn't mean anything in the grand scheme of things. Coaches can move them around, but it will be fun to see if anything changes and who's up and who's down because it can change day to day.
I expect the hard part for you guys, though, and for anybody is you know, the viewing period. You don't know when they're doing that. Is that the first team or not?
Sure.
And then they can change it, too.
There's going to be interchanging parts for that line all spring. What else we got here? We running down to the
we got
before you get a question, I want to mention that Academia Brewing Company this March 17th on St. Patty's Day, they have as they're having a and it's always sunny
St. Patty's.
Sunny St. Patty's. So they're basically having a It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia themed party on St. Patty's Day, March 17th. Academia Brewing Company. Their St. Patty's Day party is going to take place at Patty's Pub with a day chock full of Always Sunny themed drinks, foods, and events. They're going to have the full menu coming up. You can check it out now. They're going to have their milk steak, corned beef and cabbage, fight milk, and a special screening of Damon versus Nightman. So if you are a fan of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, a great, great show. The folks out at Academia are having a St. Patty's Day It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia themed party. That's going to be one to catch.
There really are a few better days to get drunk than St. Patrick's Day.
I know, and so if you're going to do it, I'm sure you can come by here.
So are you going to be in New Orleans when that happens?
I don't know. That's up in the air. We'll see.
I think we should do a fan survey about who they want to send. Does you want to send Roddy or you?
I'm voting for Roddy.
No, they don't want to send him because he'll actually do work. I'll just go down there and eat.
Well, I mean,
we sent Roddy. And
we got a Rivals thing down there.
Yeah,
the Rivals camp. So
when's Atlanta?
Atlanta is April 19th on my birthday. So
we'd be 26.
Yeah, you know it, man.
No, we had to move it because we had it set for April 20th, and then
you give me a pass to get in if I went over there?
I think we could sneak in.
Get over there and say I worked for Rivals for a day.
Well, you do.
Yeah.
It's volunteer, but it still counts, you know.
All right. You got any other tough questions?
Well, we did have one question here. Speaking of all these offensive linemen, and I thought this was an interesting one. Stuart Kitchens asked, is Georgia recruiting Cooper Mays, Cade's brother, up there in Knoxville? I'm going to say that I just don't see him as a top-level guy for them in this class. I'm not saying that, they're ignoring the kid or anything like that, but in my estimation, to get a kid like Cooper Mays would be totally it would fly in the face of everything you've done to this point on your offensive line. Cooper is a lot smaller than Cade
His size hurts him a little bit.
Yes, I agree. He's a 6'2" kid, so he doesn't fit the prototype for what Georgia has done to this point. Now, he's a very talented offensive lineman.
Has he been offered by Tennessee?
He has, and I got a feeling that may be how.
That's what
you got to think. Dad's got to want to send one of the kids to.
I've spoken to some folks at Tennessee, and they feel really good that Cooper's going to wind up there.
I bet. So, that's definitely my take on Cooper. Like I said, good player, good defensive lineman as well, so don't forget that.
How about that quote from Jarek Guarantano? How you pronounce it?
Jarek Guarantano, yeah.
His voice, I really like this offense. We're going to be throwing to the tight ends a lot.
Yeah, right.
Who wants to tell him?
My man needs to watch some tape. Go back and watch that Jim Chaney tape.
Yeah, he's got that in his.
No, for sure.
I just thought that's pretty cool.
I think James Crump says, interesting point here. He says Georgia should be good at wide receiver and tight end, but at tight end you can't afford any injuries this season. That's going to really hamstring things.
If you had an injury to Charlie Warner, then your next guy with the most experience, Wolf.
Oh yeah, you're right.
But then. Are they running the same?
You got Seether coming in.
Yeah,
you got Seether coming in. I mean, yeah, still.
And then go.
And here's the thing about Charlie Warner. He plays so hard.
Goody. He can play in the fall, right? Yeah. Fitzpatrick.
Yeah, he should be ready by the fall. And I think Ryland would be a very good option if you had to turn to him. You know what I'm saying? If you can give him the time off, maybe get him in a little later in the season, give him a full year to rehab that.
Let's don't go to sleep on Fitzpatrick either because I'm telling you, he's a big kid. He played in a system where they didn't really throw the ball to the tight end, maybe more wishbone type stuff. And I liked his development. I liked what he did down on the scout team.
And great hands.
Because it's easy to get an attitude when you're not getting a shot, But he went down there, and every day it looked to me like when I watched him that he was trying to give him a good look.
The kid is driven. We had him at the
big kid.
We had him at the Rivals camp. What is he, 6'5"?
Yeah.
So we had him at the Rivals camp, and he's coming from Marist, where they're just running that
triple option,
the veer type thing. They're not throwing a whole lot to him. He caught everything thrown his way, threw guys to the ground. I think he won our MVP.
He did. He was wide receiver tight end.
So the MVP. Wide receiver tight end MVP from a guy at a school, they don't throw the ball. So we were big on him then, and then right after that he got a Georgia offer.
The rest, as they say.
The rest, as they say, is history. Now, that's not to say that going to the camp got him the offer, and it's a pet peeve of mine for folks that claim kid gets an offer by going to their camps. If the coaches aren't there, the camps are not giving you offers.
I tell you, if you got a chance to go to these camps, if you're a parent, to send these guys to get that kind of exposure, plus the training, plus
that's why you go.
Plus the other thing is the reality pill that you take, seeing your kid dominate against a local yokel, and then going out and seeing what the real world's like is very important for you as a parent.
Yeah.
Because one thing you want is the best for your kid, and you don't want to BS them. Hey, boy, I can't believe you, man, you're a really good player. You're getting screwed. Then you go watch these guys, and you see what the pool looks like.
Yeah. Well, we had a situation where someone's here's son ran a 400-meter dash, came in third against some small schools, and then we went to a much bigger event this past weekend. Yeah, it didn't do so well. And I'm like, buddy, you're a freshman.
He could have put that learner's permit to use out there.
But to the point, the coach's point, that's why we have nobody else in the industry does this. We have our own camps. We have our combines where you can come out and, that is actually a pay deal. It's pretty cheap.
But the combine gets you ready for if you do
chosen, well there,
you can go to the next part.
And then we have our camp, which is invite only. And what we do with the invite only, we're like, look, we want the best players in this region, this area, to come go against each other and see how you perform. Now, it's not to get you offers from college coaches. The college coaches can't be there. Now, we do put all the film up, and they do watch it, and we'll get a bunch of texts going, when's the film going up? When's the film going up? They want to see how, again, the coaches want to see how you performed against the best players in your region.
I like it.
But the combine, you come out and you get an accurate height, an accurate weight, an accurate shuttle time, an accurate 40, laser timed, not, hey, this hand time BS where they're trying to make you look good. It's not put on by somebody who's trying to sell, their gear to you. We give you a ton of free gear. You come out to the actual camp, the invite camp, and we get to see these guys go head-to-head. It's not just for the stories. And here's the thing. They have former NFL players and former NFL coaches there, college coaches, former
Brandon Jacobs is working the circuit this year.
Really?
Former New York Giant and Auburn running back, as well as Super Bowl champion.
Big guy.
So we have guys out there, who are teaching these kids. We've had Deion Sanders out there before. We've had a lot of big names, guys that have shown up, and they get good instruction. So point being, when we have the one in Atlanta on April 19th, we were going to do it on the 20th, but that's G-Day, and the following day is Easter, so we moved it to Friday night.
Friday Night Lights.
But you've gone to the one in Tampa, great players. You've gone to the one in Miami, great players. We've seen the same thing in Houston, L.A. 2 weeks from now it'll be Dallas. We're all over. We got Washington, D.C. We have Charlotte coming up. We are the only one that put these camps on because we want to see in our own settings with our coaches what these guys can do one-on-one. And
good.
It helps, and again, it's not going to move you up in the rankings or move you down just because you came to the camp. If you come to the camp and perform, you can move up. If you come to the camp and get blown up, you probably move down. Based because, again, we're basing this on, it's a judgment call, and the more we see of you, the better, more accurate we are. So.
All right.
So we'll be in New Orleans this weekend.
Before we talk our way into spring practice here, let's go ahead and wrap this one up. By the way, programming note for next week, we will be bumping the podcast to Wednesday afternoon after Pro Day, I believe is what we're going to do. So
we want to be able to recap the first day of spring practice, what we've seen, and then we have Pro Day in the morning. So why have it Tuesday morning before practice, and actually right in the middle of Kirby Smart's first press conference.
Yeah, right.
So we need to Kirby's having his press conference next Tuesday at noon, which is when we normally do the podcast. So Coach had a good idea of doing it on Wednesday, and then I said, well, we got Pro Day Wednesdays. Well, let's do it after Pro Day. Because usually, Pro Day's usually wrapped up by 12:30 or so.
Maybe we can get Belichick and some of those guys to come over and eat with us.
There you go.
By.
There you go.
Actually, a couple of those scouts I talked to up in Indianapolis say, look, we had some good eats up there. Now come over here to Champions and try this out. So.
There you go.
And, of course, if you want to come out next Wednesday, if you can't make Tuesdays, come out next Wednesday at 1 o'clock. We will have the show live for you there. And we'll give a big shout-out again to our sponsors. Big shout-out to Academia Brewing Company, Athens Ford, Aaron Overhead Doors, Europi, Cable East, 365 Game Day, and, of course, 11 Alive and Champy. So we'll get a chance. Check in next Wednesday at 1 o'clock. We'll talk to you later.
That's it for this episode of the UGA Sports Live Podcast. Tune in next week for more Georgia Bulldogs news and notes from Athens.